Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Appreciate you joining us here for TSSA Talks. We are in a great partnership with the folks here at the historic Exit Inn in Nashville, Tennessee. Tremendous music venue. Look up their history. It's a lot. There's some famous faces staring back at me from these walls around us. Happy to be joined again in this partnership between the Exit Inn and Tennessee State Soccer with Desmond Armstrong, Tennessean, U.S. Soccer Hall of Famer. Desmond, when we were talking before, we kind of ended up with the disappointment of the Olympics. So you guys go 2 ties and a loss, some frustration maybe with how you were utilized. From there, we now have one of the great U.S. success stories when it comes to the men's side, with us qualifying for the '90 World Cup in Italy, where we were not expected to qualify. A crazy Cinderella journey to do it. Take me, if you could, from coming into the '90 World Cup, and from there, if we could take this chunk to kind of go through the '94 World Cup, and then into the beginning of MLS, which is as your career started to transition from on the field to the ways you have served our game off the field. So let's start to kind of leading up to the '90 World Cup.
Yeah, leading up to the '90 World Cup, we qualified in 1989, the last game of the World Cup qualifiers in Trinidad and Tobago. As you mentioned, storybook, we actually get in, and so we're preparing in January to go into the World Cup 6 months later. We make the final cut. We get the core group of players that were together in the Olympics are now transitioned into the 1990. We play our 3 games, a lot of questions. There was an actual story leading back to the NASL in regards to Pelé and coming to America, and this is the crop. We are the crop of players that have benefited from his presence of bringing soccer to America. We're it. So it's a big story globally, maybe not here in the States, but globally. And for me in particular, myself and Jimmy Banks, okay, here are 2 black guys that are playing soccer, and they are, the quote was, Pelé's babies, make it to the World Cup. So we play our 3 games. We get smashed in the first game. Czechoslovakia, known back then, 5-1. We go into the second game against the host, Italy. We have a good showing for ourselves, lose 1-0. But we did well to get some respect. We didn't get smashed. And then our last game is against Austria. And we actually have a legitimate chance to win that game, but we lose 2-1. So out of that, U.S. Soccer's president, Werner Fricker at the time, talks to us, tells us how disappointed he is in us and our presence in the World Cup. And I'm like, what is this? Where's this coming from? Dude, we just made it to the World Cup. And it's our final game. And this is what you got to say to us? So we take that, go home, and sights on what comes next. So what comes next is try to find a team individually as players. Try to find a team globally, not in the U.S. because there's no pro league here. Try to find a team to play for in any country, anywhere in the world, because we just came out of the World Cup. So about 5, maybe 6 of us get a chance to pursue a contract. Harksey, John Harks, Tab Ramos, Peter Vermes, Tony Miola, John Doyle, Steve Chichut. And for myself, I had to go through some back channels, and I got over to England, Luton Town. And then from there, I got a call from a German guy, an agent, same agent as Paul Caligieri. And he says, hey, got a chance for you to go down to Brazil. And I was like, really? And he says, yeah, Santos. I was like, are you serious? And so to tie this back into Pelé played for Santos. I had his video, The Master and His Method, which was filmed on the grounds of Santos, that was being promoted here in the United States, that spurred me on to play pro. When can I leave? What would you choose? Luton Town, waking up every day with gray skies, or a block away from the beach in Brazil? Okay, you're with me. I was in Brazil the next week. So I'll go down there, sign my contract, blah, blah, blah. I play First American ever to sign in Brazil's professional league, and it was a disaster for me. I played a couple of games, but I quickly realized I was average. Back home, I was a superstar, because nobody's playing soccer back here. But there, I was average. But a great experience for all of us, and we're preparing, as though we're players going out of the country to play professionally and getting ready for the next World Cup, of which we've been awarded, USA has been awarded the 1994 World Cup. So I spend the season down there and then come back and we have a new coach. Bora Milutinovic, takes us to the World Cup 1994 and move into California, the first time that we are all housed together, the first American team that's ever housed. And then from there, we compete for a spot for the last cut. And I got cut. So I was the very last person to get cut for the 1994 World Cup team. But during this time, we're doing a lot of different things, promoting the sport in this country. Globally, everybody's looking at the USA and our team. And so as it pertains to me individually, I'm on the board of directors for U.S. Soccer. I'm one of the guys that, along with the rest of the board, deciding who's going to be the next professional league in this country relative to the fact and success of the 1994 World Cup and bringing professional soccer back to the USA. And so we elect and choose MLS. And with that, I'm cut. Didn't participate in the 1994 World Cup, but I was involved. I did ABC Sports as a color commentator. So what you see Alexi Lalas doing right now, who was a teammate of mine, I was doing with Jim McKay and ABC Sports, Wide World of Sports in the 1994 World Cup with Desmond Armstrong as our studio analyst. That's my...
That's your broadcaster voice.
Broadcaster voice.
So, I mean, these are a lot of rocket ships for you, from just being introduced late to the sport at your age, to then being on the youth national team at 16s and being an alternate there, World University Games, Olympics, World Cups, things, people we've watched on TV, people dream about. And now you've got an extreme disappointment that you don't agree with, that you're hurt by, but this sort of, to me, it looks like in the grand scheme of your life and career, you're beginning this transition from leadership on the field to leadership off the field. You go from, playing in the 88, Olympics, playing in the 90 World Cup, get cut the last cut for 94, but still you're leading in the boardroom, helping to select what the next professional league is. You're leading as a broadcaster, continuing to share and spread the game. Tell us about that journey, how you go from being a player and having to ultimately put those boots away, or in your case, choosing to put the boots away when you still had opportunities to continue to play.
Yeah, I think first from the 1990 World Cup, we came back and I was actually writing for USA Today in regards to a diary and what we were doing. And one of my last articles dealt with realizing that we as Americans have the potential, we have the talent to compete on the world stage. And so one of the driving forces for me from that point forward was giving back to our community in America to say, look, if we do these things, having been there, having done that, having seen what success looks like at the higher levels for soccer, what if we were able to get everybody involved into the sport? And so that takes me back to the last article of, if we take the sport of soccer into every facet, every corner of America, there's talent here. So if we can do that and work towards doing that actively, of starting programs in urban areas, in urban cities, myself and Jimmy in particular. Jimmy from Milwaukee, he came out of an urban area known as the inner city, and I have a problem with that terminology because it's either urban or suburban, and so inner city means the black part of town, generally, low income. So that's where he came from. I moved out earlier, and so we were more suburban. I was more suburban, but we wanted to go back into introducing the sport. Had we not encountered that sport in some regard, definitely for me, if I had not moved, I wouldn't be playing soccer. For him, somebody came into the community and got him involved. And so we wanted to go back and share. A leadership context in terms of mentality started back then to introduce the sport to all neighborhoods in America, to extract our talent and then show that talent what was needed in order to be successful on the world stage. So my thought patterns were shifting right after 90, even though I was still young, still pursuing my own individual career. And then to highlight that, obviously, in being cut from the 94 World Cup, I was one of the leaders of the team. I've been there ever since 1987. And now, I've got to basically go home, tell my wife and my daughter, my son, pack up, we're leaving. And that's what we did. I was gone in a week's time. From Orange County, California. Boom, I was on the plane, we were out. I was hurt. I wanted away. Even though I did commentating and so forth and so on, had a brave face and all of that, I was really hurt. And so then it became a matter of success of the 94 World Cup. Where do we go from now? MLS. What's my involvement going to be there? Is it going to be a player? Is it going to be something else? So I did sign a contract. There was a fifth player signed in MLS, but I elected not to play. I elected to move on and say, okay, now that I have my coaching license, of which we obtained in camp, what can I do with that? Really underneath the auspices of how can I give back? And is this the time to do so? One was I wanted to do it because step away from the game from a player perspective to then be present for my family and grow my family. That's a personal thing. Second, okay, how do I use what I've already obtained by way of experience, knowledge, insight, exposure, now coaching? How do I apply that from a context of we're Americans? Okay, I'm an American and I respect the Brazilians. I respect the Germans, the Italians, the English. I respect the Dutch. I respect all of their cultures and the way that they've interpreted the game, but I'm an American. So how can we do it? How do we take our culture in? And so that started me on my trek in terms of coaching. I want to do it this way. And so for 25 years, I've been coaching at every level in America. And I could have gone into coaching in the MLS, but that would have taken for me, again, to get into a mindset of back to a player. I'm going to be away from my family. I'm going to have to sacrifice all of these things and be very single-minded in order for me to navigate through even a growing league. Even though I have connections, this is the truth. Look, I'm still a black dude. Even with my experience, okay? How many black coaches do you know in all of this time in the MLS?
Desmond, as you're talking, I mean, we can go and look at the front offices across the MLS franchises. We can go and look on the field. I mean, being a student of the game in a different way than you, my playing career ended a whole lot sooner than yours did. It's a lot lower level. But you know, I look out and I see some of the guys I followed as players that I was big fans of. I see Robin Fraser. You know, Robin it's been a long trek for him.
Yep.
It's been a lot of years, a lot of pathways, a lot of time as an assistant coach for him to have finally found a couple of opportunities now. But I don't see a lot of people that look like Robin or that look like you that have gotten those jobs.
My point. And so I could have gone through all of that. I could have been, quote unquote, the first. But you bring up a good point. It's not just the coaching. It's a natural transition as an international player to move into coaching or management. And if you're in a different country, that's an easy transition. I'll give you Ernie Stewart. So Ernie, one of my roommates, okay, comes to the national team after our 1990 World Cup appearance. He plays in 94, 98, okay, and he plays in the MLS. When he's done, he went back to Holland and he got a job like presto. Why? Because he played in the World Cup, because the country that he's from really understands the culture of, hey, he's played in the World Cup. So we're going to utilize that for our club or any club that hired him. I don't know that he went to college. I don't know that he had any more experience outside of playing in 2 World Cups. He got an instant job. Come back to America, it's not in our culture. Okay, so now I have to navigate through, okay, what do? I don't know necessarily what to do, but I have my coaching license. And should I coach in the MLS? Well, if I have to coach in the MLS, who do I need to talk to? Where's my opportunity? What do I have to sacrifice, as I have already sacrificed as a player, to go into this arena? So I elected for myself personally, first, my family. Second, okay, give back to the game in the capacities that I can. And then third, okay, let me just take a look. So for Robin, Robin and I talked. His very first, I coached Adidas ESP, Elite Soccer Program, there for 4 years. I won everything there. All-Star game, won the championship. Robin comes in and he coaches there. A lot of the coaches that coach in MLS came through that system, identified as coaches' potential to move on. So we talked. He did that for 1 year. Boom. He got a job at Chivas USA. Chump organization. MLS has to take them over. They're closed. So they gave him the worst franchise. Okay? Then he's got to be an assistant coach for like a good 8-10 years. Okay, first Red Bull, and then he goes up to Toronto with his boy, Greg. They know each other. Greg took him, gave him an opportunity. And now, Colorado, okay? Dennis Hamlin is the only other ones. How many players? And I'm the first. I'm old, okay? So there's plenty of guys that came in behind me, but I'm old. And so those guys who played the game, played at a high level, surpassed me, okay? Where are they? Administratively, not just coaching, administratively. And so when we talk about this same thing that happens in soccer happens across the country in other arenas of professional markets. And so you have to prove yourself to the extent of you've got to be stellar to get the opportunity. Where someone else, no, that's my guy. I know him. That's my boy. And it's nothing against Ernie. I like Ernie. And by the way, Ernie's half black, half white. Okay, so he would be considered an African American if he was in America, but he's actually Dutch. Ernie, you're Dutch, but he's American. Okay, and now he has his opportunity. He has his opportunity. Okay, but how many years are we talking? I've been coaching for 25 years at every level. I'm talking about 3-year-olds, man. I know you want to know a good program for a 3-year-old? I can tell it to you. I can do it for you because I did it for my kids. I can do that all the way up to the pros. Okay, I can do it. How many more guys can do it, but don't openly get the opportunity? They have to go through all of these things to be considered because it's just the way things are. And it's an innocent thing. Mm-hmm. I just want to be clear here. This is not a context of me saying, oh, because they're black, they don't get it. No, that's not what I mean. I'm saying it's innocent in the sense that there's so few guys like me playing the game beyond Columbia, Maryland, okay, where I can look and say, well, one of my boys, Jimmy Banks, is being successful. He's going to bring me over. Or I'm being successful. I'm going to bring him over because we're boys. And innocently, and I'll say this about Pete Vermes, I give it up for Pete. Pete, Sporting Kansas City, general manager, head coach. Pete, open arms. We did our A license together. We've been together since '87. And so when I started working with Sporting Kansas City, he asked me, what do you want to do? He openly asked me, what do you want to do? So I had the opportunity then to say, hey, yo, Pete, put me on your staff. Now, I did say if he becomes, national team coach, put me on the staff. But but I didn't want to move to Kansas. So it's innocence. Sure. in the sense that there aren't a lot of guys out there that are in positions to then bring their boys along. That's all I'm saying.
I think you make a really great point, Desmond. And so when we come back, we're going to take another little break here. When we come back, I think it's really interesting when you look at the perspective of it took you seeing somebody that looked like you on TV. Another big dynamite moment in your life was when you saw one of your buddies get drafted into the league and go straight into being a pro when he was 18. But you didn't see a lot of faces that looked like yours on the coaching side. You didn't see a lot of managers picking players. You didn't see a lot of the administrators who were men of color, through those years. So as we come back, the next context I want us to discuss as we wrap this up is we've gone through a long and historic and impressive, Hall of Fame career to now. I want to talk about tomorrow. I want to talk about next year. I want to talk about how do we continue to move this forward for the next? So really interested in your perspective on what's the next bit of U.S. soccer, of world soccer, and how does it pertain to us? How does it pertain to you as a black man in our sport as we take our steps forward? So we'll be back in a couple of minutes to finish up this conversation.